Since we're now a little ways into wipe and some of the fear and shock of the whole multi-classing system has worn off, I want to share my two builds that I'm most excited for. Spell Sword, making use of that beautiful crystal sword, and Shield Slam Fighter. So we're going to talk about Shield Slam first. This one has always been intriguing to me. I think there could be ways to make it so much better. I truly believe multi-classing is a way to experiment with things that aren't always the meta, most overpowered, run people down with maximum amount of damage. Like in this example, I really believe Shield Slam's a bit underrated for the amount of spacing you get from it. With the slow, the ability to block even after your shield is somewhat retreated back closer to your body. Shield Slam applies 25 physical damage and slows for 2 seconds. Also, which doesn't include, is that launch is very, very far. Couple that with multi-classing and potentially Achilles Strike, and you could be getting yourself into some really interesting scenarios on maps like Ice Caverns or even in Goblin Caves, pushing people into traps. During those 2.5 seconds, they're going to be slowed by 50%, giving you such a huge window. Maybe even slowing them into mobs, or pushing them into mobs, or pushing them into their own teammates who decide to shoot them in the head. Yes, I'm looking at you. Wait, I'm reloading. And trust me, I understand some of these builds are just simply for fun. You can quite simply add anything to the Barbarian's kit and it'll probably be amazingly strong, at least in melee combat. But that isn't to take away from the fact that the spacing tool and the slow on Shield Slam has increasingly left me impressed. 1v1s become so much more engaging for me. It's not just mouse one who can hit the target first with their maximum damage falchion. It's just an interesting way to play the game. Amazingly, it works very well against some barbarian weapons. I apologize, the audio is a little messed up in this one, but you'll notice he has Iron Will, so first hit didn't actually push him back, which left me in a bit of a situation. However, some of the blocks, like right there for example, that Shield Slam was putting up, some crazy blocks. Just imagine having Achilles Strike slow them even more, giving you better opportunity to land hits. On to the next one, which I think is the best looking fighter you can create. This Crystal Sword Fighter. There is some wild gear in fighter class that makes this build possible, simply because you can stack so much will for really, really cheap. This was some dated information, this is from before wipe, but you can hit 40 and 40 quite easily, and now with some of these new pieces of gear, like the Dark Urus, getting your armor rating up and stacking willpower is going to be a lot easier. That item alone, on top of the Poe Point, not sure how to say that, those two items give me interesting options when it comes to this build. You have Stitch Turn Shoes, which also add 4 will. Leather Leggings give you decent armor rating with nice low movement speed penalties. This may be a little faster than what I'd like to run, simply because you have not a lot of HP, but look at my willpower, 31 willpower. Pretty decent movement speed, and that's going to push our magic power bonus over what you saw in that earlier damage number totals, which I was hitting around 40 each. So you can hit probably close to 80 or more with blue gear. I'm not sure, I haven't got to test this yet. Solos have been a bit of a struggle for someone who doesn't play as much as most others. Adding Adrenaline Rush to this has always been my preferred method, and in the past I used to stack quite a bit of dexterity because I enjoyed taking longbow. But what I'm hoping to do with multiclassing is, yes, it's going to be risky, and yes, I have to play Wizard. Who knows how this is going to go, but Ignite, or Zap, or any of these other options would be amazingly fun on a Crystal Sword Fighter build. Hopefully we dodge Light Orb. Couple that with Melt, reducing physical damage reduction from your target, and reducing healing, both magical and physical healing, each sword swing, or maybe each zap, in between swinging that sword. It just seems so badass when you couple it with the armor you can wear. The Visor Barbuda helm is one of the nicest looking helmets in the game, and it's almost never used. So in this build I was stacking some decent dexterity. I think it was 27 dex and 27 will, around that on this build. So my willpower wasn't hitting that hard, and for the most part I've never really pushed this as far as it could go. I have never been one to have a ton of purple gear, or uniques, or legendaries, whatever. I'm always on a budget, and if you're going for cheap blue gear that build into this is probably some of the cheapest you can find. So often you can find decent stat rolls, like additional physical damage, additional magical damage, and a whole host of things for dirt cheap. Is it the best in the game? Not sure. Am I excited to try Spell Sword? Maybe casting fireballs or haste out of my Crystal Sword on top of having sprint? Yeah, I'm damn excited. Maybe I'll even add a flame ignited crossbow or a longbow, which will be even more hilarious to operate within these dungeons. This is from earlier. This is past footage, so if you're seeing anything you don't recognize or it looks odd, especially these goblin caves, because this was when I was using Crystal Sword before, for a couple nights on stream. And yes, with Adrenaline Rush, you can swing that thing pretty damn quickly. Don't forget, Sword Mastery does work on Crystal Sword. All the armor that's being stacked everywhere, with whatever it's called, Holy Armor Tank Man, which is Cleric, and Barbarian stacking decent physical damage reduction. Fighter stacking a lot more physical damage reduction thanks to some of the armor add-ons you can now get with your rings and gear. That little bit of magic damage could become quite valuable. And the only real way to get it on fighter class is with a Crystal Sword. I'm definitely going to be experimenting with this more during this wipe, and I will be trying to level up Wizard. You guys can watch me live on Twitch if you want, or on YouTube most nights when I have a chance. But it's definitely going to be different. It could be a challenge. I think the safe option would be rolling Barbarian and basically taking anything that is a skill on Barbarian other than more sacrifice. Probably be useless. Maybe Reckless Attack is also kind of bad. But if I had a shield slam build where I'm slamming them with my shield and also applying Achilles Strike, damn, that'd be awesome. Blood Exchange, also amazing, because you have dual wield and Slayer. Like, there's so many good options on Barb if you're a fighter player. I'm probably going to try to experiment with Wizard first, just to have something more unique. And slapping people's little buns around with a Crystal Sword feels good. I did want to quickly share with you guys some of my build options, like the final sheets. I created a Google Sheet, which explains all this, but before we get to that, my Goblin Caves experience was a damn struggle, and running into teamers early on wasn't fun. It was not a good time. I had a really good fight going with this bard, and of course, he had to recruit someone to try to end my journey. So maybe we'll publicly shame them a bit. Not really a huge deal. Teaming does happen. We were both running out of time in this raid, and obviously this bard chose the easy way out. So, finally, the builds I recommend if you're going to try Crystal Sword or Shield Slam. Now this is going to get a little heavy, it's a bit intense, but I did make a crazy Excel sheet to help me add up all these numbers rather than sitting in Marketplace while working from home. So, for Crystal Sword, Templar Armor, Leather Leggings, and Armlet is an option. I think it's a really underrated option because Strength is maybe a little undervalued now with Vigor and all this health stacking that goes on. You can go Visored Barbuda as well. Stitched, new weapon or new item in the game, Stitched Boots. Gives you 4 will, which is pretty handy. And then Riveted Gloves if you can afford them. That will give you about 160 armor rating. Minus 30, but that's before Swift, so minus 23. Armor rating, before Swift and Agility added in. It will give you 16 will and 4 strength, which is a pretty hefty amount of willpower. So if you wanted to mix up and do like kind of equal physical and magical damage, you could easily go Sallet or Armlet into Riveted or Light Gauntlets. Very, very good options. And if you add up all your armor, including Defense Expert, you're almost at 170, which should push you pretty closely to that 30% PDR, which I would prefer to have. Now for Shield, I may experiment a little differently with Shield. Light Acritin, I think, may become a little underrated, or is a little underrated. Plate Pants, and then Armlet, and Lightfoot. Boots into Light Gauntlets. The reason for the Plate Pants is because you're getting Strength and Vigor from Pants, which isn't very easy to get, and then stacking some of the HP you get from Light Acritin and it being super cheap with decent, I'm not saying amazing armor rating, but overall 150 armor rating, and that is not including a shield. So with Barricade or Defense Expert, you're looking at like 162 with Defense Expert, and then on the shield you're looking at like 212, which that doesn't include Defense Expert and Barricade. So you're getting some pretty decent numbers, like 50% PDR when you're holding that shield up. Finally, last thing I should add is you can kind of modify some of those movement speed numbers simply by adding 5 to your boots or 5 to your legs, giving you like -10 movement speed penalty on that crystal sword build. Pretty decent numbers, considering you have solid PDR. Anyway, I just wanted to share this little chart with you, get really nerdy with some of my build guides, and I hope you're all enjoying the wipe. I am struggling a bit, but I think we're starting to get a better rhythm, and maybe we'll be able to afford some decent gear in the near future.